Hi, Mike and Kathy. Mike has just spent a long time looking at our video for our first 6 months. Turns out it's going to be a two-parter. So, or to be a one-parter, that would put everybody to sleep real quick. But at any rate, this is part one. We hope you enjoy it.
Thanks. Hey, we're the Sergeants. I'm Mike.
And I'm Kathy. And this is Better Late Than Never RV Adventures. We've been on the road for 6 months now, and we'd like to put together a little video and let you know how it's going, where we've been, and how that first 6 months has worked out for us.
So anyway, we started out in Florida, but we ended up there moving down from Kentucky and moved into a condo, 55 plus condo, and we were very comfortable. We loved the beach, so we were having a great time.
Yeah, we got kayaks. We went to the beach every Sunday. We were really enjoying ourselves. The idea of landing in Florida was, we had decided, well, maybe we're never going to get to retire, so where do we want to be? And we agreed that ocean sounded good, warm weather, no snow, that sounded really good. And so that's kind of where it all started. Somewhere along the line, and I'm not even really sure that I remember how, we decided that we were going to take a look at some RVs. Maybe RV retirement might be a possibility. I hadn't seen one in a number of years on the inside, so we went up to an RV dealership in Tampa, and saw some units. They talked to us about new ones. We talked about new ones and used ones. And when we finally got our budget together and saw what we liked and didn't like, we decided that we wanted a Class A, and that used was probably going to fit our budget better than new.
Right.
We looked at different floor plans, and we ended up with Daisy. Daisy is a 2013 Fleetwood Bounder.
Yep.
35K is the model. She's 36 feet long. We got a bath and a half, which is good because when you're traveling and the slides are in, you can still use the half bath to have your own restroom as opposed to a public restroom or a tree. And so that's all good. It's got just the right amount of space for us. And it seems to be serving our purposes really well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, some of the reasons for our choice was I would have liked to have a diesel pusher and so on and so forth, but we had to look at first the overall cost, and second of all, the big choice was the maintenance. On a gas motor, even though I do know several things about the diesel motors, I drove a truck for 20 years, but the gas motor for me was going to be easier for working on myself because of the way we budgeted everything. I can't go pay $150 at a dealership to have every little thing done
per hour.
Yeah, so that was one of the choices. I've not been disappointed. It has the V10, low mileage. The oil was clean in it. I'm sure they changed it, but now we've driven it probably 10,000 miles or better at least, and the engine seems to really run smooth. No burning oil, no leaks. So we really like our choice. We don't feel like we made a bad choice, and it's been very reliable. We had to do updates because my wife worked from home, so we're driving down the road. She's working Monday through Friday.
So that's kind of how we actually ended up living in the RV was. Like I said, we bought her in August of 2019, and our maiden voyage was to leave the dealership and drive 800 and some odd miles to Kentucky to show it to our friends and family. So that was kind of shows how we behave. We're pretty...
Yeah. We told the dealership we were leaving the dealership and headed up to Kentucky. They said, "What?" which I thought was, why, is there something I need to know? But I think they're just not used to somebody taking off on a trip right after they pick one up. But we do that kind of stuff. So anyway, it
We're a
worked
little
out.
impulsive like that. But yeah, so it worked out. We had a good time. We came back and we had a storage yard where we were keeping the RV and still living, of course, in the condo. And we started spending less time at the beach and more time visiting the RV, pulling out the slides and hanging out, watching RV YouTubers and talking about the storage options and upgrades we'd like to make and little fixes that we had seen and things like that. So we were spending all our time there and started to talk about, we need to look when our lease is up on the condo where we might be able to lease a spot in an RV park where we could live and even get to know more about how RV living would work when we were actually on the road. So we found a place in St. Pete, a nice little privately owned RV resort park, and we lived there from May of 2020 to when we hit the road full time on October 31st of 2021.
Yeah, we made one of the conscious choices of doing that was, besides the fact we didn't want to be paying for a storage place and paying for another place to live, it also gave us the opportunity to see how comfortable we were going to be living in it, working full time. Because at the time I was also working, and so was she. And get used to a smaller space and see how it went when you're in it every day. It also made it easier for me to do work on the RV, upgrade stuff, because I was there every day and then had to go to a storage unit to work on it.
Yeah, so we did that for a little while, and then after we were living in her for about 6 months, we started talking about the opportunities to semi-retire for Mike and to do work camping. So I started investigating all the ins and outs of that and putting feelers out for places that he could go and work camping, what the options were, what the trade-offs were for the work versus the site and that kind of thing. Because we really didn't know anything other than what we had seen on YouTube. So I started to do some serious investigation. First real goal was to end up in Yellowstone for summer of 2022.
Yes.
So that was actually it tied. It was definitely the first choice, but it tied in the timing of the offer for jobs.
Right.
There was an offer to work in Arizona for the January, February, March, and April period, which we're in now, and the offer to begin in early May through the end of September in a KOA that's right outside the west gate of Yellowstone National Park. So they hit at the same time, so we took that as a good sign and put the plan in motion at that point.
Yeah, there was when that started coming together, it was probably 4 months, 5 months out from when we were actually leaving, which was at the end of October. And so it kind of solidified and made real the fact that we were actually going to hit the road full time. And so there was that kind of accelerated the updates in the RV, because she needed a space to work. So we made mods inside, and then we decided we were going to paint, and then we decided we were going to change furniture, and I mean, we made some changes.
Replaced all the flooring.
All the flooring.
Yeah.
And so the last 3 or 4 months, it was one of those companies coming, I got to get everything fixed things. And so we worked on all that really hard, and about a week before we were going to leave, we had been having trouble with our RV refrigerator for about 3 months, off and on. Sometimes it cooled, sometimes it didn't, and we watched everything we could. That's normal for the older refrigerators.
And of course, RV fridges, you have to leave space between the ketchup and the mustard. You can only put just so much stuff in there. Airflow is kind of critical. So we kind of thought maybe we were just doing something wrong.
We were doing some things wrong. Turned out after things just, I guess, degraded worse, then we started smelling propane, and then our alarm went off. So we had a tech come out. He said, well, yeah, it's shot, I can fix it, but I have to do this, which cost about this much, And a new refrigerator, new RV refrigerator is like this much, and it was like 3 times what a replacement residential would be in the RV.
The might work fix for the existing refrigerator cost more than buying a residential fridge that was twice the size of what we had for refrigerator space already. So immediately while he's there, we'd been watching some videos, so it wasn't completely in the dark. I asked him about our inverter. I said, can you look at our inverter? Would you tell me what we would have to do to just go residential? Because we knew that being completely off grid wasn't going to be something that we would be able to do for a few years because I'm working. So we're going to have some sort of power, whether we, get a blessing where we can upgrade to solar, or whether we're running our generator so many hours a day. One or the other is going to have to happen. So the fridge is kind of not any different than me working. They're gonna take juice and they're gonna take them at the same time. So he said it would work, and so there we were.
So she ordered his fridge. It was delivered on. We were leaving on Saturday. The refrigerator was delivered on Thursday. Friday. I had a couple friends I work with come over. We never got the other refrigerator out of here. I thought for sure we were going to have to take the door off. We'd already measured to make sure the residential with the doors off would go in, which it did. But we had to completely disassemble, and I mean completely disassemble the RV refrigerator to get it out.
As in chop into pieces.
Yes, but we did get it out. We got the other one in. Me and Kathy, the guys that we bought it from, the Lowe's that we bought it from, they brought it in the RV, but we weren't ready to stick it right in the hole because they hadn't got the insulation in. Anyway, me and Kathy ended up putting it in, and that was, I wish we'd have videoed that because
that'd have been fun.
That would have been fun. But we got it in, and we pulled out on Saturday morning on time, and the refrigerator worked, and we had twice as much space, so it was a win for us.
Yeah, it happened at exactly the right time. That would have been awful to have happened on the road.
Yes.
It was just one more thing that fell right in place with perfect timing that just gave me even more of a solid feeling that this is the right thing. We're doing the right thing at the right time, and God's watching out for us. So
we took off, and we spent 2 weeks at 2 different state parks in eastern Florida on our way up towards ending up around Thanksgiving, where our old home used to be in Kentucky, where our kids and grandkids live.
Yeah, so when we were getting ready to leave, when we left where we were anchored and headed out, we hit 2 state parks. Like Mike said, we went to Jonathan Dickinson State Park on the East Coast near Jupiter, Florida. Is a really great park. Mike spent a lot of time working on getting his bike ready to be a daily rider for his fun and exercise.
Yeah, I had to do a lot of replacement, but it wasn't terrible. It was easy to find out how to do it.
And it was a great park. He enjoyed riding around there. I worked, of course, every day while we were there, but we got to see a few things around the area, and it was fun. When we left from there, we went up to Paynes Prairie State Park, also another excellent Florida state park, and we were there for several days. When we got there, I think maybe between Jonathan Dickinson and Paynes Prairie, there was some question in Mike's mind about the batteries.
The batteries, yeah. And I'm not sure that they're original from 2013, and we couldn't find a date on them. And I kept testing them, and over the whole time we'd owned the RV, but we started noticing they weren't taking full charge. And a few days before we were going to leave Paynes Prairie, I replaced both of the batteries. I ended up finding out one of them had a bad cell in it, and it actually started to expand the battery down on the lower end. So, that was one of those easy fixes. You think you never had to, mess with it too much. It's not going to be that big a deal.
Yeah, he took a picture before he took them out, so he didn't know how he put them in and all that kind of thing.
So anyway, we got the batteries in. A couple days later, we unhooked and headed north up towards Georgia.
Yeah, we were going to Roanoke, Virginia to visit with some close friends for a couple of days on our way to Kentucky. Our first night was in Savannah, Georgia, in a Walmart parking lot, and that was when we discovered that the inverter kept kicking off.
I started, the inverter kept going on and off, and you could actually hear it click. And of course, you always think the worst. It's got to be a bad inverter. Then we start going, did the refrigerator cause this? Anyway, to make it a shorter story, by the time we got to our next stop was in, where was that at?
It was when we were in Savannah,
Was
Georgia.
it in Savannah?
Yeah.
We
Right there across the parking lot, there happened to be
RV
Travel
deal.
Camp RV dealership.
Yeah, and so I went in and talked to a tech in there just to ask him what I maybe should be looking for. And you know, I can't speak for all RV dealerships, but the guy I was talking to, I thought was a tech or maybe the manager of the department there, the tech department. Turns out he was the regional manager for the tech department.
Hector Cobo, service manager of the entire
That part of the East Coast.
company for Travel Camp. Yeah.
And so anyway, this gentleman, I did a drawing. He said, no, you got the batteries and everything in. He said, let me come out and run a couple quick tests. He comes out and he runs some tests. And the next thing I know, he spends about 2 hours checking everything that has to do with the 12-volt electrical system on the RV. He ends up finding out and a lot of RVers already know this, I didn't until then, there's 2 brass solid fuses that are right by the battery. One of those had a crack in it. I'm guessing that the crack happened when I was putting in or taking out the other batteries. Somehow the battery touched it. It didn't short because I never noticed that, but the weight of the battery could have cracked one of those brass fittings. $5 fuse. So he told me this is what you need, and what he did is, because they didn't actually have one in stock, is he straight wired it. He said this way you can get it to the next place where you can get one of those fuses, and because he hot wired it to make sure that fixed the problem, and he hot wired it, everything worked fine, no more problems with the inverter. I ended up finding an inverter fuse. One of those fuses for that battery had a Advanced Auto Parts just up the street. Put that in myself, and it worked. Now he spent 2 hours in the hot sun in Georgia, and he would not take a nickel.
He wouldn't take any money. He wouldn't take us, can we go buy you some lunch? He wouldn't take anything for having done this for us. So that's why I say he was the first angel we encountered on our journey. Hector Cobos is his name, and God bless Hector. That was amazing. That was so cool.
We were all up and down the scale, from having to replace the inverter to a major electrical problem we didn't know about. Turned out to be a $5 part, and a guy that didn't have to spent the time to help us find the problem.
It was great.
So after we got the fuse fixed, we headed on up towards Roanoke.
Yeah, so we landed in Roanoke, Virginia. I had made some reservations at a place called Dixie Caverns. They had kind of what had been touted online as a cheesy touristy place, and they had caverns there. We didn't do the tour. We didn't really have the time because we were really there to visit friends. But a nice little campground. Maybe 30 sites or so. It was clean. It was
relatively quiet, even though it was close to the interstate.
Set down in a hole, so you didn't really hear any highway noise to speak of. Very nice experience there. And we spent 3 days visiting with some close friends. Hi, Greg and Leslie, in case you're watching. And then we left there and headed on up to Kentucky, where we were going to spend some time with our kids, grandkids, and siblings.
And while we're on the trip from Roanoke to Kentucky, we discovered, you always think you think of everything, but my wife works while I'm driving. We're lucky enough that our internet system, she can work when we're driving, even through the mountains of Virginia and West Virginia. The only thing is, we didn't take into consideration the hills and turns in the mountains. And one time I'm going around the turn and I hear, whoa, and she slams out of her desk all the way up against the kitchen counter. So we didn't count on that, but we ended up finding a fix for that. and finished our trip on up to Kentucky for Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays.
I am now securely bungeed into my seat when the vehicle is in motion. So yeah, so that then we it was the middle of November when we arrived at our daughter's house in Kentucky. Hi, Kristen, Carmen, Carly. Thanks for letting us live in your driveway. And we stayed there for 6 weeks, and during that time we had our traditional annual sergeant brother sister trip to Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, we went to Smoky Mountains. We've been doing it for a long time. My sister Jackie and her husband David, and Ricky and his wife Jackie, and we always have a good time. We always eat way more than we're supposed to and laugh way harder than we can stand. So it's always a fun trip. It's never been disappointing. We look forward to it every year. And after we got back, we spent 3 or 4 days there, and then we went back to Kristen's house and did Thanksgiving with our kids and grandkids, and
got to visit with some friends in the Kentucky area as well.
Right.
While we were there. Hey, Connie, hope you're watching. Jarman.
Yeah, Mike, good to see you. And so we spent a lot of time there, probably too much time. Kristen, I think, was getting tired of us being in her driveway. We were there for actually 6 weeks mood stocking. And of course, all the grandkids wanted to keep coming over and sleeping in and all that stuff. So we had my middle daughter Tara's son and 2 daughters over. That's Isabel, Mikey, and
Selena.
But he don't like me calling him Mikey anymore. So hi, Mike.
Yeah.
And our youngest daughter, who lives with Kristen, her 2 sons, Connor and Aiden, were there a lot. So I think it just got to be a lot of hustle and bustle, I guess.
It was a distraction for them to be taking care of their kids, and we could only have one kid stay over at a time. And of course, since some of them lived right there handy, it was just Mike and Isabel and Selena that each took turns coming over and spending a Mimi and Pappy night
in the RV.
with us in the RV.
And we really enjoyed having them.
It was great to see them.
Yeah.
It was really great to see them all and to have them with us for a while before we headed out on this adventure, because we knew it was going to be a good solid year, if not longer, before we got to visit with them again. So
we had a great time. Thanks again, Kristen. And we left there January 3rd.
January 3rd.
Yes.